Thank you. We're going to move back to our paper speakers now. Speaking second, in proposition of the motion, we have Will Hutton. Will is a columnist for The Observer. He also chairs The Purposeful Company and is the president-designate of the Academy of Social Sciences. He is the chair of the advisory board of the UK National Youth Corps and was principal of Hertford College, University of Oxford, from 2011 to 2020. Will, you have the ears of the House.
Yes, an apology about my Oxford career here. Pleasure to hear the outgoing president and vice president speak so well, both of you. Don't agree with you, but have to acknowledge it was well done. On July the 1st last year, the US Supreme Court ruled that President Trump could not be criminally prosecuted following the federal grand jury indictment for, as it said, knowingly spreading false claims of election fraud to obstruct the collecting, counting, and certifying of the election results. Trump and his legal team kind of contested that there should be any notion that as a president he could be doing anything criminal. A president has absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions performed within the outer perimeter of his official responsibilities, and that the indictment's allegations, the grand jury's allegations, fell within the core of his official duties, extending to the outer perimeter. Everyone knows that Trump's refusal to accept the 2000 presidential election result was alleged ballot rigging, was a lie. It was not a stolen election, but he held out. And the court that he had ensured had a 6-3 Conservative majority, found that the January 6 kind of events were part of the outer perimeter of his official responsibilities, and consequently gave him criminal immunity as president, which he holds now. De facto, the US Supreme Court has ruled that an American president should have monarchical power while he holds office, she holds office, and thereafter. A Supreme Court with an embedded Conservative majority had conferred that power and saved President Trump's skin. No other president has ever asked for such an indemnity, nor any Supreme Court been peopled, so had that been asked, it would have been accepted. It was a right-wing constitutional coup, a travesty of the intent of the US Constitution, the brazen end result of a decade-long rise of an American right that does not accept the basic ground rules of democracy, nor the enlightened values that underpin it, and ultimately a betrayal of democracy itself. My contention, as you ponder which way to vote, is that while all my adult life the threat to freedom, democracy, liberty, the rule of law has allegedly come from the left, the greater threat today has come from the right. I'm not saying that the strains on the ultra-left, kind of dictatorship of the proletariat, etc., which are firmly anti-democratic, nor am I claiming that the liberal left have a monopoly of virtue. What I'm arguing is that in the liberal democracies of the advanced economies, it is not the liberal left today that threatens democratic freedoms, ranging from conceding that you've lost an election, actually to freedom of expression, as in this union. It's from the right we've most to fear. And there are three logics which I think drive contemporary conservatism in that direction. Logic one, the raw truth of democratic politics is that for the liberal left is in a political bind that compels it to be democratically virtuous. It's the change agent that wants to promote common good outcomes, wants to redistribute economic wealth, and tackle concentrations of political power, whether private or public. And here's its problem. For that to be legitimate, it has to win elections, so it can legitimately legislate for change. And it has to insist that just as it respects the rule of law, so it expects that wealthy and the powerful, whom it's now going to legislate against, to do the same. Revolutions don't work. They risk counter-revolutions. In any case, the mass of people want no part in them. Look at the early history of the Labour Party, whether Keir Hardie, Ramsay MacDonald, and all of them spent their entire time until they, right up until 1945 ongoingly. You can be safe with us. We are not revolutionaries. We are going to respect parliamentary democracy. The route to change is via parliamentary politics. It's actually in the DNA of the liberal left. It used to be in the DNA of liberal conservatives like Hugo, and I don't know Laura well, but I'm imagining it. Today, I have to challenge you both. You may represent that kind of DNA, but it's no longer mainstream. Secondly, the logic of ideas. The liberal left only emerged out of the European Enlightenment. Immanuel Kant, you had to dare to know. You had to challenge church and monarchy. There had to be freedom to think, to speak, to worship, to express oneself, to assemble. How else could economies and societies find their way to the right answers? How could science and knowledge proceed? Of course, legitimacy came from the people. Of course, authority had to be checked and balanced by the division of powers embodied in the American Constitution. Of course, you had to enfranchise the voters. Of course, there had to be accountability. It was the left who embraced the ideas because they were the change agents, the promoters of the new order. And by and large, it was Whigs, Liberals, and Labour that opened up the franchise, attached the privileges of the House of Lords, and tried to entrench rights. It was Conservatives who did not give ground, or gave ground only slowly as possible. Conservative thought was rooted, as you acknowledged, actually, Vice President, outgoing Vice President, then actually it's about conserving, rooting a nation of a good society, the securities of existing institutions and existing modes of thought, the Burkean small platoons, who by knowing their place anchor themselves in society. That's always been the kind of story. But then you have a third logic kicking in, which is the rise of messianic faith politics, which undergirds, in my view, the rise of populism. It always had an Achilles heel, the liberal left. Could it manage the economy? Could it manage a capitalist economy? That was always the right strongest card. But it has not been its strongest card over the last 45 years. The Thatcherite revolution has not pursued the game changer that we thought. Here we are in 2025. Our plight speaks for itself. Nor is it that kind of liberal economics done much good kind of in the States. Kind of deaths of despair, kind of massive squeeze of real wages, gross inequalities. And that has, losing the battle of ideas, what is the kind of economic program, the right champions, they've turned to faith. Faith in the strong man, faith in common sense, faith in the old truths of family, kitchen, and motherhood, faith in the nation, and hatred of the other, the immigrant, anyone trans. And the great attraction of faith and hatred is there's no counter-argument. And that has led to where we got to on July the 1st, 2024. That is and that has opened up the whole Trumpian revolution, has been described so graphically by Sammy here. And it's not just that whether it be the Voice of America closed, it's not just the slashing of American aid, it's not just kind of the fear, the mantle of fear that's actually descended on American society, extraordinary. This great republic is unable to speak out as its Enlightenment values on which its constitution was constructed are challenged in front of our eyes. And nor is it only in America. A great friend of mine, Dame Helena Kennedy, worked in the International Criminal Court on the indictment of Netanyahu. She learns from the Foreign Office that actually it's likely that not only her, but all her family are going to be unable to get into the United States. Any assets she holds in America will be confiscated. And here's the point, that her assets and her bank accounts in Britain will similarly be unavailable to her. An executive order by King Trump its long hand extending into our island. We have to worry about the rise of modern conservatism in the way it exemplifies itself in Trump. Could it happen here in Britain? Hugo had a grandstand seat kind of in the proroguing of Parliament in 2019 by Boris Johnson. There's an extension of Henry VIII powers that give the kind of executive order capacities that kind of President Trump holds in the States here in the UK. Our press is not a vigorous champion of kind of civil liberties, baying for the kind of withdrawal from the European Court of Human Rights. The rule of law is very tenuous. Our popular press goes after our judges. Pizzas are delivered to the home addresses of American judges so they know that Trump knows where they live, so that they could be strong-armed or frightened or even worse if they give the wrong judgment. It could happen here. So I conclude by saying it matters. It matters profoundly that conservatism has got itself into this jam. It matters profoundly what is happening in the States. It's a forerunner of what could happen here. It is picked up and run with by populist faith kind of driven parties of the right across Europe. It's very profoundly serious. And this union should send a message out tonight that that's its concern, it believes that, and we have to act. Thank you.